Good evening, everyone. This is Ceren İskit, and you are watching What's New, What's News. Yes, we had an intense campaigning process in Turkey, and Sunday, all the students went to the ballots to vote for local elections in Turkey, and Turkey witnessed a historic wins during this election. We will discuss this with my distinguished guest, Hakan Yavuzyılmaz, but before that, I would like to give you some brief information what happened during the elections and what will be the consequences that we will discuss with Mr. Hakan Yavuzyılmaz. On the election night, actually, Turkey's main opposition party, Turkey's Republican Party, actually won a victory against the ruling party, AKP, and almost more than 37% of the local mayors actually transferred to the main opposition party. Meanwhile, AKP has won only 35%, and there is a very significant and important development happened during this local elections, because the minor party, New Welfare, knowing with Islamist Conservative Party, actually won a very significant percentage during this election. More than 6% went to the New Welfare Party, and also another dynamic element resulted with the pro-Kurdish party, Dem Party, as well. So we will discuss what will happen next after this local election. And I would like to invite Hakan Yavuzyılmaz. Hello, welcome, Mr. Hakan Yavuzyılmaz. Thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Good. Hello, and it's my pleasure to be here.
I really appreciate that you joined me today's discussion, and I have a lot of questions about this local election because I think it was really unexpected that the main opposition, CHP, actually won a victory against the ruling party, AKP. After almost a half century, actually, after 47 years, the main opposition has achieved a significant success. However, there have been an average almost 10% decrease in the voter turnout during this election. How do you evaluate this accomplishment by CHP, and how did CHP manage to win after such a long time, you think?
The main, there are two basic reasons, one on the opposition side and one on the incumbent side, so to speak. From the opposition side, as you know, during the 2023 elections, both political democratic resilience in the country and the societal democratic resilience crashed deeply, right? The morale of the opposition voters crashed. So the leadership change in CHP, Republican People's Party, significantly revitalized that process. That's one factor on the opposition side. And also a second factor, I think there were some problems in terms of candidate nomination for the local elections. But in general, I think Republican People's Party did a pretty good job in terms of like nominating candidates that have high capacity for mobilization. On the incumbent side, there is this what we call decreasing performance legitimacy of the regime in Turkey. As you know, there is this inflation has been skyrocketing in Turkey. Cost of living is dramatically increasing. And also incumbents' capacity to distribute rents to its voters and also political elites significantly derailed. This is one main reason for the outcome of these local elections. And also, one last point, I think AKP as a political party significantly lost its capacity to nominate effective mobilizers in terms of candidate nomination. We see we see candidates who are highly incapacitated in terms of like mobilizing. Think about Kurum, for example, and all the problematic campaign process that he went through. So I think that these three main reasons are basically one of the most important factors behind opposition's landslide in these local elections.
Yes, especially retired people and the promises that couldn't even they made. This is another problem for retired citizens, and maybe they underestimated, I don't know, but it was a very unexpected defeat for AKP for sure. It seems that AKP's dominance, which has lasted over 20 years, more than 2 decades actually, has come to an end. How do you perceive this loss?
Yeah, I think the outcome of these local elections show that AKP is the second largest party right now. It's not the... So electoral dominance of AKP is like since 2017 or maybe 2015, think about June elections, for example. I think the electoral dominance of AKP is like going a downward trend. But both due to the autocratization process that Turkey went through and also individual mobilization capacity of Erdogan, I think is what still sustains this dominance. So we are not talking about a party that has full capacity of electoral mobilization. We are talking about a political regime that highly skews the electoral playing field to its advantage. And also we are talking about one charismatic leader, who's Erdogan, who still have some important mobilizational capacity, especially among the conservative voters. So, yeah.
Well, that's what I was planning to ask you actually. Today they had this meeting with Erdogan, actually, with the party central executive board, and there are some speculations about the political circles that there will be significant change within the cabinet and also the central decision board, including the possible replacement of finance minister Mehmet Şimşek. How do you interpret these potential developments? Today, the spokesperson Ömer Çelik actually made a statement that they will delve into the problems and they will evaluate and they will work on the change and everything, but what will be the consequences for the party as well?
Probably there will be some shifts or rotations both inside the cabinet or maybe inside the party, because as we know from other cases, when there is a single charismatic leader which has a total and only capacity to mobilize voters, then you need to shift blame to other entities. And party is a useful tool in that, or cabinet is a useful tool, because you are shifting the blame from the main mobilizational tool. Secondly, I think even though there may be some changes in terms of, like, for example, intra-party changes inside the AKP, I think AKP's structure, which is in a completely institutional decay, by the way, will not change. So it is not possible for this party to turn back to its factory settings or revert back to this the institutionalization process. Secondly, with regard to this economy, I think regime's space of maneuver is really limited, because if Erdogan changes the finance minister, then there will be a policy shift, right? It will be back to another kind of policy which we are used to, inflationary, right? That will have a cost, and that will have some important repercussions for the upcoming elections, because it will further ruin the economy. If he decides to stick with Mehmet Şimşek and decides to stick with this ongoing monetary policy, then he cannot decrease inflation without generating unemployment. So, there is this paradoxical situation because Turkey is not a resource-rich country. Turkey needs to drive a foreign direct investment and produce itself. So that's why I think the potential for sustaining this competitive authoritarian regime in Turkey is really limited. So we may see some cabinet shifts or changes in the cabinet or AKP, but there will be some important dilemmas that this regime needs to solve before upcoming general elections.
Well, we will see. I mean, speaking about the upcoming elections, actually, I mean, for the normal process, it will be on 2028. But now there are some discussions about a possible early election. I don't know what sort of elements that they're evaluating, because economically, I don't think there will be such debate, even discussion on this early election. However, New Welfare Party, as I mentioned before, they had a really significant percentage, more than 6%, which I think nobody was expecting such result on that party. How do you see that? How they gain such percentage from the voters, do you think?
This New Welfare Party, we have been tracking this party's performance. And we were seeing that its membership levels were increasing dramatically since the general elections in 2023. So this party, I think, has been really effective in terms of door-to-door canvassing, which is the basic mobilizational strategy of political Islamic parties in Turkey. Think about, for example, the past Welfare Party, right? So I think its organizational capacity has increased dramatically. That's why the party was able to effectively mobilize, especially reactive voters against AKP. And also, I think in 2023 elections, we see the same dynamic, right? Because this New Welfare Party entered the parliamentary elections as in a separate list, with an individual list, not through the lists of AKP. And we see this dynamic there also. I think that was a good strategy for enabling the ruling bloc to hold on to its legislative majority, because reactive voters against AKP could not easily shift their voting preferences towards the opposition. And that's why they stayed in these parties such as MHP or New Welfare Party. And still, in these local elections, New Welfare Party was the main address of the voters who are reactive to the AKP, but could not vote for the main opposition party, Republican People's Party, or other political parties on the opposition side. So that's why I think both the party's organizational capacity and mobilizational capacity, and also its capacity to mobilize these reactive AKP voters created this kind of an outcome, which as an outcome, it became the third largest party in Turkish politics right now.
It seems like even though after stepping back with the main opposition, CHP's former leader Kılıçdaroğlu, it didn't affect especially the voters of AKP, because they are still stick to the Islamist conservative ideology, probably. Is that correct?
It is difficult to calculate how CHP created this kind of an electoral outcome, but there are certain voters that shifted directly from AKP to CHP. And there are also voters who refrained from going to the ballot boxes and voted for AKP. So that's why the level of turnout, electoral turnout, is decreased in these elections. And most of those voters that put their reaction through not going to ballot boxes, I think most of them are AKP voters. So it's one way to show your reaction to your party, right? So I think there are AKP voters who directly voted for CHP candidates, especially in Istanbul, for example, or Ankara, because of their reaction against this regime and all those economic problems and other factors. There are AKP voters who refrained from voting, and through that action, they tried to punish AKP indirectly by not casting their votes in these elections. So I think it will be a harsh conclusion to conclude that CHP could not drive any voters, AKP voters, to itself, because it did, right? Because there is this massive increase of vote share in CHP also.
Well, I think that another reason is that, like, coming from other minor parties, İYİ Party, DEVA, Gelecek Party, the alliance of Republican Party from general election, they voted CHP as well. Maybe another reason would be the voters voted for CHP. That's why I mean, this is difficult to identify.
Yeah, you are definitely right on that point, because İYİ Party's strategy was basically is an unwinnable strategy in these local elections, but it basically indirectly tried to create problems for the main opposition party. And I think there is this interesting outcome. There was this interesting trend in Turkey. These parties, like, for example, pro-Kurdish DEM Party and also pro-nationalist İYİ Party, could not mobilize its core electorate to vote for their candidates. So those voters are directly shifted to CHP. So I think in Turkish politics, some political parties' capacity to effectively mobilize their voters for their candidates also derailed. But that's another outcome of this election.
Especially speaking about the pro-Kurdish DEM Party, I think that it was a little bit deliberate to do that, even though they put their candidates in the big cities. But I think there is another reason for putting their candidate, this showing a clear message that separately we are going on this election. But on the other hand, probably because they didn't mobilize, they didn't campaign directly their voters, it was kind of a sub-message saying that it wasn't a specific or how do you call it, official alliance, showing their being an alliance for that. But on the other hand, probably not all of them, but some of the Kurdish voters voted for CHP as well.
Especially in Istanbul, because I think there is this, here we need to appreciate the role of agency or actor as a candidate. And İmamoğlu is highly effective, has been highly effective, and was highly effective during these local elections in terms of mobilizing 3 different societal groups in Turkey. Kurds, secular mid-income citizens, and also conservatives. I think that's the where the agency or actor comes into play. So that's why he was able to effectively mobilize these 3 different societal groups, and that's why this huge gap between the incumbents candidate Murat Kurum and İmamoğlu occurred in these local elections.
By the way, I want to warn our audience, if you have any questions, you can drop on the chat box and I will be able to ask Mr. Hakan Yavuzyılmaz. Speaking about the pro-Kurdish DEM Party, today some incidents happened, unfortunate incidents, and despite winning by a significant margin, the DEM Party's candidate for mayor of Van was not awarded the certificate of election by the Supreme Election Council, and instead of giving this, they gave it to AKP. A similar situation occurred in Diyarbakir. It has been revealed that AKP filed objections in a total of, including Diyarbakir's district, 17 metropolitan cities and districts. How do you think the landscape will unfold the Southeast? Because this is another problem. Usually, yes, this is a strategy of AKP. For a long time, they have been doing it, letting them to win the local elections, and then seizing those mayoral administration after the elections. How do you evaluate that? Will that be happen again, or what will happen there?
That strategy was tested right after the 2019 local elections, right? The appointment of public trustees to these provinces in the southeast, especially southeast region of Turkey. But we see that even under all those years, those provinces were governed by public trustees. In these local elections, we are seeing that still DEM Party effectively mobilized its voters and gained those municipalities. So I think the political regime in Turkey can again go for nominating public trustees in some of these provinces, but I think that will come with a price, because I think for the upcoming elections, even though AKP still continues its alliance with ultranationalist MHP, Erdogan needs to mobilize also Kurdish voters. So I think in here also there will be a price to pay. Okay, the regime, the political regime in Turkey has the capacity to do this, as we are seeing today. Right, but that capacity brings important costs for the incumbent, and also there is this paradoxical situation. If you compare Erdogan's speech right after the elections and the things that we are seeing today, so we have to see what will happen, because the most important basic feature of this kind of autocratic regimes is that there's a high level of uncertainty, right? Because everything is opaque, right? Untransparent. So we need to see. But even I myself wasn't expecting this kind of a swift move from the political regime. So we have to see how will it go.
It was really sharp, actually. It was like straightforward to after the election, only 48, not even 48 hours
yes,
passed by the local elections, and now it is another situation.
But the opposition's reactions against this swift move was, I think, important. It's an important, because in order to sustain democratic resilience under this kind of selective repressive environment, all the political parties at least should unite in their reaction to these undemocratic moves. So it's an important dynamic or momentum to sustain for the opposition. So that's another point.
Yeah, we have a question, actually. Hüseyin Hüsnü Kaynak just asked that one. I wonder what would be the outcome if this was a general election.
Yeah, first and foremost, dynamics of local elections and general elections are completely different in Turkey. Now, we cannot be 100% sure that in case of a general election, we may find a new welfare party on the side of the incumbent, for example. So, and also the results should not be compared with the results of general elections, because there is this charismatic leader, Erdogan, right? He will be the main mobilizer if this was a general election. And also it will depend on what will be the candidate structure of the opposition. Will there be a joint candidate, or all the opposition parties will go for a separate presidential candidates? So there are many different kind of dynamics. And also AKP voters, if this was a presidential election, AKP voters will probably cast their votes for Erdogan again. So we should not be 100% sure that all these voters that refrain from going to ballot box will also do the same thing if this was a presidential election. Right? So dynamics are different.
I think the voters of AKP, especially Erdogan's voter, I would call that, they want sustainability. So they don't trust. They completely don't trust the opposition party. Whether they put another candidate, not even Kılıçdaroğlu, I don't think those elements affecting those voters. This is what's my observation from the past general election as well. So yeah, I agree on
but
that.
I need to add something here. I think both the configuration of this table of 6 or the opposition coordination in the past general elections and all this joint candidate nomination process and the joint candidate himself was poorly managed. So we don't need to be 100% pessimistic about, okay, the opposition will never be able to mobilize AKP voters and change their voting preferences for the opposition. There is this capacity because there is significant problems that this regime has been facing. So there is always this possibility. So I think we should not be over pessimistic about this potential, so to speak, in Turkey.
I have another question. Thanks to the question, Mr. Hüseyin Üstükaynak. Thanks for that question. I have another question because the incidents happened today against the pro-Kurdish Dem Party. It seems like it reminded me that a general election we faced on 2015 on June 7th elections, actually, because there was a significant result came from the ballot boxes and also especially the Kurdish voters. After the Kurdish voters resulted, HDP, their former name, they broke this barrier 10%, and there was a completely different scenario. When you compare this to the local election, will there be any kind of other incidents? Do you expect like bombings, maybe terror attacks, or any kind of incidents like that? Because this is another concern of people are thinking, oh, we are having some similarities, some results coming from especially Southeastern. What's your insights on that?
Hopefully that won't take place, but there is this possibility. But I think if there is that kind of security issues, as you said yourself, between the two elections, as we saw in the two elections between June and November, I think also that will have a price for Erdogan, right? Because there will be a security crisis, and this government, the AKP leader Erdogan, and also MHP leader Bahçeli builds up their argument or discourse only on this dimension of security. And their only instrument for mobilization, think about these BK discourses and securitization of certain issues, it will destroy that discourse. If there is a significant security issue in Turkey in terms of like bombings or other kind of stuff. So this is a possibility, and I hope that won't take place, but it will have some, again, costs for the incumbent as well.
Yeah, because I mean, this is what I'm thinking, actually. They may target the main opposition party, saying that allegedly they alliance with the pro-Kurdish party, and the Kurdish voters voted for CHP, and now you can see the results. There will be a lack of security just because of that, maybe blaming the main opposition party. This is another element of the idea of people are concerning. This is what my concern as well, actually.
Yes, but there is this difference, there is this more routinized interaction between the pro-Kurdish party and the main opposition alliance in the previous elections. And Erdogan and the incumbent alliance significantly instrumentalized that relationship and securitized the issue of this, like all this terrorism and that kind of stuff. In local elections, there is no that kind of an institutionalized form of relationship, because DEM party nominated its own candidates in the major provinces in Turkey. So, and if Erdogan tries to blame this societal shift in terms of, okay, DEM voters are casted their votes for the main opposition party, that's why there's a relationship, then it will have a price for Erdogan. Because it's a societal issue, it's not a political issue. It's political, but it's not related with the political elites or political parties. It's a societal thing. So that will be a different thing.
Another concern is about actually İmamoğlu's situation, because there will be there's an ongoing trial against him, banning from the politics, and the next hearing will take place on April 25th. And do you think there will be a possibility that they literally sentence him, banning from the politics, because he was chosen by the voters now?
Well, the political regime or Erdogan has the capacity to do that, because, the independence of the judiciary is significantly derailed. There's no independence, so to speak. And there is the rule of law is also degraded in Turkey. So the regime has the capacity to achieve that outcome. Yes, they can ban İmamoğlu from politics. But
what will be the outcome from that then?
But yes, that will be my second point. It will again come at a very huge price for both Erdogan and incumbent, because it will significantly revitalize or mobilize the opposition in Turkey. And not only the opposition voters, core opposition voters, there will be reaction from AKP voters also. And it will be a very difficult thing to manage for the upcoming elections. So there will be a huge price to pay for Erdogan electorally if he decides to take that route, so to speak. But definitely the regime has the capacity to do that. But there will be a price.
The main reason is we are facing an autocratic regime with the presidential regime, and until we go to the parliamentary regime, all the threats and difficulties are still on the table, and hopefully for democracy it won't happen that way.
Yeah.
I have another question. Let's be a little bit optimistic now. With this outcome, with this local election outcome, there is now 11 women mayors actually in between the metropolitans and also metropolitan cities and also districts. How will this impact for the politics, do you think, during this process?
It's a really important achievement, so to speak, for Turkey. But there are some structural problems, and political parties, upcoming governments need to solve this problem in Turkey, because young persons' capacity to become politicians or candidates, or women's capacity to become politicians or sustain a career in politics and become candidates are severely limited. And it is just through the consent of the men. For example, if we are talking about women, it's only through the consent of men-dominated Turkish political parties to decide nominate women candidates. And it's a really unacceptable process. So this is a good sign, and this is a really important achievement. And I think the presence of women mayors, especially in conservative districts, may also change the perceptions, conservative perceptions about the role of women in Turkish society. It is an important achievement, but we need to solve the structural problems. Turkish political parties law, for example. Right? There should be gender quotas in candidate nomination. So we need to speak for these reforms, because it is always left to the decisions of older generation and men to decide who will be candidates. And if this structural factor remains intact, then there will be always a representation problem, or sometimes representation crisis of young politicians or young people, and also women's participation in politics.
Well, yeah, I think it's very vital to put women in the field, and the percentage must be increased immediately, but we're struggling other problems like Istanbul Convention, other law articles as well for domestic violence. So we have a lot of to think about it as well. Well, we're coming to an end. I have one last question for you. How about the young voters, like first-time voters that actually, because the committee of voters board actually election board actually revealed that more than 1 million young voters involved in this local election, but seems like they have an interest for the minor parties, like either extremist nationalist Victory Party, Zafer Party, or Memleket Party, or other minor parties. How do you see that? How did affected this local election, you think?
Well, first and foremost, as far as I know, we don't have any concrete data on what is the percentage of young people inside these absentee voters, or the voters that didn't cast their votes. But I saw a survey right before the elections conducted by Go4 in collaboration with Conda research company. And in there, young people's party preferences or voter preferences, CHP was the first party, but the most important bulk of these young voters are undecided voters. So there is this representation crisis. And in Turkey, mainstream political parties fail to nominate young candidates and fail to mobilize young voters. That's why we are seeing young voters increasing preference for this, so to speak, radical parties, right? Radical right-wing parties or left-wing parties. So mainstream parties also face this challenge in Turkey. How can we effectively mobilize young population? Because Turkey has a huge young population, as you mentioned.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Yavuzyılmaz. It was a really enlightening discussion that we had today. I think there are more to talk, but for the coming days, I'm keeping on that. Thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure for me. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, yes, there are many results coming from the local election, and I think there will be a lot of subject to talk, matters to talk after this local election, because we historically this is a huge victory for the main opposition party for sure, but I think there will be a lot of work for them and a lot of responsibilities that they should take on. So we will see on the coming days, and I will be following closely those events. On Friday, we will discuss another topic at 12:30 p.m. Till then, have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.